talking tonight about ideas, or as they would say up here in the backwoods of Maine, ideas. And in Maine, at least for me, every day is idea season. So what John Rennie knows what I'm talking about. He's from New Hampshire, which is like, we're like New Hampshire's ugly cousin, so he gets it.
Yep.
So what prompted me to do this was shameless self-promotion. I just released a new book. This is just an author review copy, which is why it has a gray stripe going across it. It's called the Idea Journal. And it is not just 130 blank pages. It is, and this is kind of a flashback to a concept we talked about probably almost a year ago when I had Andrew Scott Wills, the singer-songwriter or the songwriter in Nashville, come on and talk about creativity. And one of the things I shared with you is I think a best practice for everyone, especially if you're self-employed, which everyone here is in some way, shape, or form, is to write down 10 ideas a day. And that was my challenge to you, was to start journaling 10 ideas a day, something I do. And I can't emphasize enough how much can kind of be born of that rather simple and sometimes seemingly mundane practice. And I'm not saying you're going to get 10 great ideas every day. The goal is not to judge your ideas right away. It's just to flex your idea muscles. And if you think about this is where John Rennie's going to get all hyped up, because we're talking about muscles and lifting and things. So I'll make this interactive with the meathead that we have here. And that's not me calling him a meathead. He is a self-proclaimed steak, grade A prime. John, about how long does it take for your muscles to begin to atrophy if you have not worked them out? And I don't mean yours, because you're like a cyborg and you're superhuman. I mean, lesser mere mortals.
Well, I know if you even just taking a week off, you can notice a difference. And 2 weeks is really bad. So you lose a lot of, whatever you gains that you have. You realize you can't lift as much as you can. So 2 weeks is 1 week is bad. 2 weeks is, you're pretty much starting almost from scratch.
And how do you spell gains, John?
I don't know. How do I spell gains?
You usually spell it on Instagram, hashtag GAINZ.
Oh, yeah.
If I'm not mistaken.
It might have been one of my boys who did that, but yeah.
Yeah, the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree there.
Yeah, they're both meatheads.
Yeah, my point being, you've got to work out your muscles or the atrophy. Your brain is a muscle. What would make you think it's any different? And if you're not flexing your idea muscles in your brain and writing down ideas and getting those reps every day and exercising those muscles, they're going to atrophy as well. And you're going to start to see less ideas come into your head, and certainly less quality ideas. So I really want to push you to, if you're not already doing this, to journal. And this is not a shameless plug to just sell these books tonight, I assure you. I'm going to give everybody I love to reward participation. So everyone who's on the call tonight will receive a free copy of this book in the mail this week from yours truly. So, but I do want to encourage everyone to start journaling ideas, because I think that we're leaving money on the table by not flexing those muscles and then actually executing on those ideas, because it's really not enough to simply jot down ideas or to just take a tablet or a blank sheet of paper or a legal pad and just write ideas down, because you don't have a consistent place to store them, grade them, and evaluate them, and then choose your best ideas at, say, the end of the week or the end of the month. So I'm going to share my screen with you in a minute and show you how I do it and encourage you to do the same. But before, this is in case some of you are on the fence or a little skeptical, I would tell you to reserve, withhold all doubt. And let's take things back before all of you were born, except for me, to 1975. Yes, you're welcome for me calling all of you young, youthful, vibrant, and handsome. 1975 in Los Gatos, California, which is Spanish for the cats. Is that right? Los Gatos? I think it's the cats. There was a guy named Gary Dahl, Dahl. And Gary was hanging out with a bunch of his buddies at a bar. And yes, a bar over a couple of cocktails can be a great source for ideas, believe it or not. And he's listening to all his friends just bitch and moan and complain about their pets. You know, my dog won't go out in the rain and will just piss on the floor by the back door. You know, my cat misses the litter box or wakes me up in the middle of the night to be fed. Everyone's complaining about their pets. And he doesn't have a pet, so he's just sitting there laughing. Like, this is ridiculous. And you guys need a more low-maintenance pet. And that is precisely the day the frickin' pet rock was invented. And this dude, I want to say he made like $1.75 million in 1975. I'm just trying to look up my my data here. He made over $1 million selling pet rocks to people as pets, born of his friends complaining about their pets, and he simply joked that he had the perfect pet. He had a rock like on his front porch or something, and he joked about that. Now the funny part of that story, and where it is a legitimate idea, was he kind of hid the medicine inside the candy, so to speak. Did any of you buy a pet rock back then? Okay, so they sold these pet rocks to people, and they came with an instruction book, which you would have thought was like for the care and feeding of your rock and how to handle it, and you'd have thought like it was a serious thing. Well, it was just a book full of jokes, gags, puns, and it was hilarious. So the rock was actually used to sell the quote, air quotes, instruction manual, which is actually a book or a booklet, like basically a joke book. But you didn't know you were getting this joke book from Gary Dahl. You just were buying a pet rock that had like little eyeballs painted on it and had different colors on it. So anyway, it was a fad. It lasted maybe a year, if that, but it made him a millionaire. And that idea could have easily gone in a very different direction. You know, especially if he were a lot drunker, he would have forgotten about it. But if he hadn't decided to act on the idea or think, I should try this, use it as an experiment, see if there's any there, so to speak, or if he didn't write it down, like that never would have happened, you know? And I think most people, and some of you are probably doing it right now, are kind of laughing at the idea of a pet rock, right? And I'm sure all of his friends did too, but Gary Dahl was laughing all the way to the bank on that deal, you know? So no, I'm not suggesting you sell inanimate objects on eBay to try and make your million, but I am suggesting you start to look at your ideas that you write down as currency. Your ideas as currency, and start to compile them and evaluate them. And I think you need to have a central place to store them. I'm going to give each of you a central place to store them, and I'm going to show you kind of how to grade your ideas. And here's the thing, you're going to come up with a lot of bad ideas. Everybody does. But within those bad ideas, there are going to be a couple nuggets of really great ideas. And you know, I look at it just like anything else. You know, like you got to kiss a lot of frogs to find the prince, so to speak. You're going to hear way more no's in sales in order to get a yes. You know, creativity is the same way. It's a game of quantity first in order to then find the quality ideas and act on them. And, you know, I think if you're fortunate, well, let's break it down. If you did 10 ideas a week, that's 10 ideas a day, that's 70 ideas in a week, excuse me. which is 840 ideas in 1/4 of a year, and 3,650 ideas in a calendar year. So if you think about it, let's say you get good at this, and it does take time and energy and thought to get good at it. You might have 1 or 2 potentially actionable ideas of value each week or each month. And I'm going to show you how to grade your idea. And the whole point of that is when you grade your ideas, you'll have your highest ranking ideas for your business. At the end of the month, you can compare them and see where you think you ought to focus your attention, time, and energy. And I think that's going to provide you with a sense of clarity and a little more confidence, and then a direction or a path forward. So you kind of have to look at the needle in the haystack, so to speak. Let me share my screen with you. So this is basically the manuscript. What I have you do in this idea journal, and I give you some examples. Start on day 1, week 1, and this journal is for a 1/4 of a fiscal year. You can just date it. It's evergreen. You can do it. You can start it anytime you want. It's not dated, and you just jot down 10 ideas. Over the course of your day. This is the kind of thing, if you leave it on your desktop, carry it in your briefcase. If you're traveling, keep it in your car with a pen. Keep that journal with you. You can jot these ideas down as your day goes on. As you think of things, jot the thought while it's hot in your head. So you're going to do that for 7 days. And then on day 7, here's what's going to happen. You're going to go into this page and pick your top 5 from the week. And just write them in each of these blocks. You write them sideways in that block. And then you're going to start to grade them and rank them. Actually, top 10, I'm sorry. Grade them and rank them here. And let me walk you through that. You're going to give them a score between 0 and 20 in each category. So you look at, let's just do 5 ideas, let's say, for now, just for simplicity's sake. You rank each of those 5 on how fast you think you can execute each of them and bring that idea to market. Scale of 0 to 20. 0 being it's going to take forever, 20 being and we can crank this out fast and not sacrifice a ton of quality. Congruence. And this specific category is to help you fight bright shiny object syndrome. BSOS, bright shiny object syndrome. You might think you have a great idea, but it might be completely incongruent and totally off-brand for you. It's going to take you away from your mission, your purpose, kind of the core value proposition of what you do and what you have to offer. Like John Rennie might have a great idea. Bourbon-flavored lollipops, and the inside of the wrapper is a fortune, like a fortune cookie, but it's a bourbon-flavored lollipop. And we're going to start producing them at my manufacturing plant, and we can package them, ship them. We can do all that. But that has nothing whatsoever to do with their core value proposition of what they do. And they sell to utility companies around the country. That's what you do, right, John?
Yep.
Electrical grid equipment and what have you.
Yep.
You would just confuse the hell out of that audience. So, I think that might be the most important category is congruence. Is it on brand for you? If it's not, you probably shouldn't do it. Unless it's some sort of passion project. The next category is growth impact. And you can measure that a lot of different ways. That could be qualitative, that could be quantitative, Like for Adam Todd, you might have a great idea that would be really good, let's say for community service in your program at the college. Well, is that going to help you win games? No. Is it going to take you away from time spent recruiting and scouting? Yeah. But if you look at the big picture and, you know, your relationship with the whole community from a qualitative standpoint, it's probably really smart for you to do community service and adopt a highway that is on the way to your campus, to the city of the town of Canton. I almost called Canton a city. What the hell am I thinking?
Village.
Adopt a highway that's on the way to the college, because every single one of your recruits and their families will pass it, and they'll get a very positive first impression of your program before they ever arrive on campus and before they meet you in person. And will that take a little time? Absolutely. But also, everybody you work with and work for is going to see that too. And it's just good, being a good steward within your community and great PR, you know? So I think that would be a good example of like growth impact that won't necessarily make you money, put wins on the scoreboard, whatever, you know, however you quantitatively measure things, you know? Fourth category is passion. Like, how enthusiastic are you about this idea? Does it sound good? Are other people telling you to do it, but it doesn't light your world on fire? It doesn't get you fired up and excited? That's a clue, you know, because let's say you're not really passionate about it, but other people are. And then you compare like your low level of passion with speed, and it might take some time. You like, the longer it takes and the less enthusiasm you have for something, you know, your enthusiasm is just going to keep waning the longer it goes. So to be able to look at those two in conjunction with one another and try and flesh out like, okay, does this make sense? And, you know, sometimes some interesting things happen. The more you look at something, maybe the more passionate, enthusiastic you get about it, you know? And then the fifth category is sweat equity or effort, you know? How much effort and time is it going to take you to complete this? And when I say you know, I also mean your team. Like, what aspects of that sweat equity can you delegate to an assistant? Can you delegate some of these things, you know? Or is it all incumbent upon you to start, execute all the way through and see it to completion, you know? So once you've graded those ideas, you're going to get a score for them. Okay? And that'll go right here. So you put your idea down, you know, Adam Todd, let's just do number 1, adopt a highway. How fast? How easy? How passionate are you about it? What's the impact? Scale of 0 to 20. And how congruent is it with your brand? And then, you know, just like you're grading a paper or a test, it's going to be 0 to 100 at this point. 20, you know, 20 times 5 is 100. It might be a perfect idea. The odds of that are pretty slim. But you're going to take those 5 or 10 ideas that you get at the end, you know, at the end of the week and grade them. And I would encourage you, don't immediately act on any of them. Maybe wait until the end of the month and compare this sheet. You're going to have 4 of these sheets at the end of the month. Maybe roughly 40 ideas. Which ones grade out the highest and which ones could potentially move the needle the most for you and for your business? I think that's the big question. And it's going to get easier with time. With time, your ideas are going to get better. You're going to get more creative. You'll be able to go more in depth with things. I want to remind you with all of this, be patient, be gentle with yourself. Don't judge the idea the second you put it on paper. And then the other piece to it is don't let other people dismiss your idea. You know, so does this all make sense? All right, you're going to get a copy of this. I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can concentrate on seeing you all now. So, you know, I think the big thing is don't let other people kind of pollute your mind with, you know, that's not, quote, that's not a good idea, or I don't understand why you would do that. You know, I think I have, as a result of going through this exercise, for as long as I've been doing this, every single freaking day, I think I've come up with one of the best ideas I've ever had, and that's to create my own internet radio station. I sent it a newsletter out to everybody. Thank you to the people who responded with your thoughts and ideas. And it's going to be an extension of my brand. There are multiple reasons why I think this is a good idea and I want to do it. The biggest one being, we talked about this before, owning your own platform. But that never would have happened if I wasn't flexing that idea muscle consistently. Another thing that was born of flexing my idea muscle was this. Like I was just, jotting down ideas, and they just aligned, almost like one of those little field notes journals that fits in your back pocket of your pants. I was just jotting down ideas in that. I'm like, this is great. I can house all these ideas here, but how do I rank them and evaluate them? So I just created an Excel spreadsheet to rank and evaluate those ideas, like I just showed you that screenshot. I'm like, this is helpful for me. Why not share this with my people? And why not publish it? So in the spirit of helping and hopefully you guys being able to benefit from what's been incredibly helpful for me, I'm sharing that with you because every single one of us is, like if you're an entrepreneur, you probably have a hard time shutting your brain off when you're driving, when you're in the shower, when you're trying to go to sleep. And this tends to be specific to entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs tend to suffer from a couple of things. They tend to have higher rates of drug and alcohol abuse and addiction, higher rates of depression and suicide, and they also tend to have a lot of trouble shutting their brains off. So they start to engage in like escapism. They'll have a bunch of different hobbies that they dabble in to just create an escape, because if they got too good at any one thing, there's like that unconscious competence element where like if you're really good at, let's say, going out and shooting your gun, you can be thinking about other things. I wouldn't advise that, but name any other hobby, like once you become unconsciously competent, you're kind of on autopilot and you can start to think about other things. And inevitably, for an entrepreneur, for a self-employed person, a producer, your mind tends to go to work because it's all on you. And I think it's also the curse of the entrepreneur. And if you're a coach, you're an entrepreneur. It's all on you. If you're a teacher in a classroom, if you're any one of us that does what we do, it's all on us. And to find ways to be able to turn things off. And I also think a great way to turn your brain off is to journal at night before you go to bed. So if you got a blank page staring you in the face at the end of the day and you're about to go to bed, take a pen and take this with you, put it on your bedside table, and just jot down 10 ideas, no matter how crazy, or 10 things that you need to take care of tomorrow, so that your mind isn't racing as you're trying to get to sleep, or your brain doesn't wake you up. But I think that every single one of us struggles with that to some extent, the ability to kind of turn things off. And I think there's a lot to be said for putting it on paper and literally closing the book on it and have some closure before you go to bed with those things. Because when you get left alone with our thoughts, that's a dangerous place to be sometimes. The last piece is a couple of different things you can do with ideas. I want to, commend Coach Brandt on what he's already doing this. And it's just kind of, I think, the way his brain's wired. He's has multiple offers, multiple programs, multiple, whether it's courses or material. He's constantly sharing and producing with his community and his customers. And what I'm about to share with you, he's already doing really well. and that's kind of dissecting, your idea or your product or your service, whatever it might be, and changing it in a bunch of different ways. Like sometimes he'll, for example, use subtraction, take something away from a product. Sometimes he'll do addition. So these are two different things you can do with your idea, your product, your service. Add to it, bundle it with something else, for example, subtract from it. Instead of making it, this big kind of product or service or whatever, make it a little more niche and specific, maybe tighten the timeline of what it is and how long it takes to get done. Those are the two ways that I really see him do that most often. And then there are a couple other crazy ways you can go at it. I'm just trying to pull up my notes on my other laptop here. One is multiplication. So we did addition and subtraction. Another is multiplication, where you take an idea to the furthest extreme humanly possible. So instead of one of something, what if you offered, your customer 100 of them, 1,000 of them? Just multiply that. What would that look like? And maybe it isn't even just quantity wise. Maybe it's multiplying and just taking a very extreme position in how you create an offer and share that or that idea, with your audience. And the other one kind of, this would be like an extreme version of subtraction, is division. So you got addition, subtraction, multiplication, now division. And that would be like, instead of just taking one element away, which would be subtraction from that idea, product, service, or whatever, split it in half, split it by a third. What would happen if you took 4/5 of it, 4/5 of it away? Just make it an extreme version of subtraction. And sometimes simply, just by simplifying something, you make it better. There's the other dog, John. You make it better for everybody. You make it easier on yourself. Maybe you make it easier or more clearer in the mind and the eyes of your prospect. Maybe that makes their decision easier. It takes them off the fence, by like doing that extreme version of subtraction, making it very simple. So I promised you 6. That's 4. The next one is transposition. Just transposing things, essentially reversing roles, changing the sequence. An example of that would be like, what if the players were actually the coaches, Adam? Your idea could be like, the coaches just aren't going to say anything in practice today. Make the players coach. You're just reversing. It's essentially role reversal, transposition. And the 6th one is insertion. And this is probably my favorite one. It's inserting an element from one field into your field or your industry. And I'm a big believer, as you all know, I think your best ideas come from outside your industry. So what can you insert? What's an element you can take that's coming from somewhere else and put it into practice in your world, in your business? Like the idea for Southwest Airlines. He got the idea to be they're a small regional airline. They couldn't get into major hubs, and he was frustrated. He was afraid the company wasn't going to make it. Herb Kelleher was the CEO at the time. A couple of his buddies invited him to go to a NASCAR race. He hates NASCAR, but he went to hang out with his friends. He didn't find himself watching the race. He found himself watching the pit crew, being blown away with how fast they changed the tires, added fuel, gave the driver a drink of water, cleaned the windows, got it back out on the road. And he said, that's what we're going to do with our airplanes. So that'd be an example of insertion. Inserting that idea of, all right, we're going to do pit stops instead of, the norm, I think, was an hour to an hour and a half it would take from the time you deboard one plane and get all the passengers off, clean it, refuel it, get the new passengers on. And it's called a turnaround. They became the masters of the 20-minute turnaround. They actually got the 20-minute turnaround down, I believe, to about 15 or 12 minutes. But it was an idea he got from somewhere else. I just think it's so powerful. You know, what if he walked away from that? I'll leave you with this. What if he walked away from that NASCAR weekend with his buddies and just said, that'll never work. You know, my business is different. My industry is different, which is the most bullshit comment and objection I hear so often from business owners, from coaches. Oh, my sport's different. My school's different. You know, my industry is different. Blocking the tackling, so to speak. Like the fundamentals are the fundamentals everywhere. Everybody sells, right? Everybody's got a team. They need to be motivated. Everybody's got to lead. If you're, if your name's on the front of your people's paycheck, you got to lead. Like your industry really isn't all that different. You just have to keep an open mind. And like, there's a guy who took that idea and ran with it and created a process for it. So, and I would argue that it's probably a little more successful of an idea than the pet rock, but it's something to think about. So those are 6 different ways you can multiply an idea and expand on it, and maybe make it work better for you, So that's what I have for you tonight. I want to take any questions you might have, and then I want to ask you all one question before we leave. So I will take questions now, and then I'm going to fire one at all y'all, as they say in the South, John. Y'all's singular, all y'all's plural.
Yeah, I think this I think this idea of this ideal journal is brilliant. I've been keeping what I call a commonplace notebook for 4 years now, and it's just ideas, things that I just think of. And one of those ideas turned into, a book that ended up, paying my mortgage for 2.5 years. So you just don't know. But I think what I struggle with is like, which ideas do I work on? Which, and I think what I like about what you shared is like being able to now sort of, having a decision matrix of like, okay, this makes sense, I can move forward. So I, kudos to you for coming out with this, because I really think it's brilliant. And for guys like me who have ideas every minute, yep. I think it's good to be able to dissect them and say, okay, which one should I work on and which one shouldn't I, work on? So.
Excellent. Thank you. Anyone else see have any questions or see some application for you? Veronica, you're going to say something?
John, did you say you have a worksheet? So when you do you take your ideas out of the journal and then put them on a spreadsheet and then drill them down from there? Or how do you get it out of the journal into action?
Well, originally this right here, which I'm showing you on the screen, was an Excel spreadsheet. Oh. And I just embedded it into the book, into the journal. Yeah. Okay. So that'll be in there. And it's just 5 areas you grade to see how close you get that idea to 100 points. It's just a point system. So that's what that is. It started out as an Excel spreadsheet, but I tend to hate things that live in the cloud or on my hard drive, because I can't see it, feel it, touch it, constantly like have it in my field of vision. So it's a reminder. Like I probably have so many ebooks and PDFs that I haven't read of stuff that I bought that's just sitting in the cloud because it doesn't like cross my field of vision every day, So that's why I wanted to put it in there and include it. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else? Party people? I appreciate you guys. I will get these copies out to you in the mail tomorrow morning. And for everyone that didn't make it onto the call tonight, you can go to coachbrew.com and you can buy yourself a copy, because we reward participation here at yesterday's Underdog. So again, thank you, all of you. If there's anyone watching the replay who has questions, wants more information, you know how to reach me. Give me a shout, send me an email, whatever it might be, And thank you all. It was great seeing your smiling faces tonight. And we'll catch you in the next episode of Video Conferences. August, namely. John Rennie might even show up for that.
Yeah, I might.
Night.
Good
Thanks,
night.
everyone.
See ya.